everyone. So recently, I think we've all kind of bared witness to Katie Joy's newest version of her childhood growing up as a Catholic and growing up with her family. And it really dawned on me here something. Her the problem she seems to be struggling with in her life is that she's lived a life where she just never got to be a victim to anyone. I think that's why she kind of grabs onto anyone else's trauma or pain or victimizing experience because she herself never really truly got one for her own, for herself, which most people I think would be grateful for that or happy. But for some reason, Katie Joy just seems to long for that chance to be some sort of victim in some sense. So she manifests herself into being one. And let me show you exactly what I mean. We're going to go through this shit here. Now, her recent posts. First of all, we're going to go through the the different stories she has told. I call them her recovering Catholic stories. So we're going to go through the different versions of her recovering Catholic stories. Okay. Now, we're going to start with some old recovering Catholic stories. Here we go. Here's one. Here we have, this is from May 17th. I believe it was May 17th this year. But she says, I'm sharing my story of growing up Catholic. My story is my story and does not represent all Catholics. I can only speak for myself. If you are Catholic and can't listen with an empathetic ear and need to deny my experience, please do not comment. 1. My grandfather was a member of the Knights of Columbus, a Catholic men's organization, and even was a leader of this group at one time. 2. My grandfather died in 2005 from heart failure. At his funeral, my Catholic grandmother told me, Katie, your grandfather died because you stopped going to church and broke his heart. 3. During his funeral, the priest shamed and degraded the family that no longer attended church. He threatened to hold my grandfather in purgatory if we did not go back to church. Priests can't do that. They can't hold people in purgatory. I mean, assuming purgatory was in real, actual place. Like, priests don't have any control over who's staying there and who's not. Come on now. 4. The priest spent most of the funeral praising the commitment and legacy of my grandfather. Isn't that what funerals are supposed to be about? Damn that priest for doing his job. While shaming his family for ruining his legacy by leaving the church. 5. I left the church due to the SA scandals of priests and the cover-up by the various dioceses that were blowing up the news in the early 2000s. Seems like a weird reason to leave the church. I mean, unless you yourself were one of the victims, then I totally get it. But as we will see, Katie was not. And I think that bothers her. 6. My grandfather was verbally abusive, physically abusive. And I found out in 2022 that my grandfather was a pedo. In 2007, in 2022, I learned through a family member that my grandfather R and SA multiple young girls. One of his victims told me her story. Does she really provide no other context for that? I mean, I get not maybe wanting to out the victim, especially if the victim does not want to be out, although we all know that that's not a concern for Katie most times. However, you could still follow this up with a little bit about a story in a way that does not identify the victim. And excuse the noise you're hearing in the background because my cat is choosing now as I'm recording to flip the fuck out. There you go. Yeah. How do you like that? All right. 9. My grandfather hid his deviant actions through his involvement in the church. He used his position to look like a stellar citizen. Okay. 10. I was left alone with my grandparents for 3 weeks when I was 5 years old while they went to Europe. While the grandparents went to Europe? Who's they? I was left alone with my grandparents for 3 weeks when I was 5 years old while they went to Europe. What? Who the fuck is they here? I'm assuming that they is her parents, but it's a big important part of this story to leave out, don't you think? Despite having a clear memory of being at home on the last day, I have no memory of staying at their home. According to my mom, I told my grandparents that I hated them during this stay. My grandma hit me with a wooden spoon. I used I I used to spend like every weekend at my grandparents'. I don't really remember one time being there though, but I know I was there a lot. I mean, I was her age, back 5 years old then. Actually, I was right up until I was like 11 or 12, maybe. Like, okay. All right, so that's the old recovering Catholic. Now we're going to go to another old recovering Catholic. I'm not sure. This might have been from around the same time, but we're going to go through it again. One aspect of being a recovering ex Catholic is listening to apologists try to diminish and degrade the abuse I experienced and blame my family for the abuse. It's not true. Here's the truth. One, my grandfather was an officer in the Knights of Columbus of his local parish. The Catholic fraternity supports the local parish through fundraising to help the church and other nonprofits in the area. Two, my grandparents were extremely active in their church. Having the priest over for dinner wasn't uncommon for them. Three, my grandparents would not let my mom marry my dad unless he converted to Catholicism and got married in the church. When my dad agreed, he signed a document with the church that he would allow my mom to raise their kids Catholic and would not interfere in their faith upbringing if he left the church. Well, that doesn't sound like a very patriarchal household now, does it? Four, my dad left the church after they got married. My grandparents were extremely patriarchal and guided my mother in raising her kids in the church. My dad stayed out of everything. They weren't patriarchal. While we attended a different parish, my grandparents were involved in our faith upbringing and involvement in cat- catechism, Catholicism, and sacraments. Oh, catechism. I get it. Okay, the Catholic education, like the CCD courses. Okay. Um, See, I never really had to take them because I actually went to a Catholic school. Only 1 year I had to take them. I got a lot of trouble too that year. Anyway, my grandparents were involved in. So the grandparents attended a different parish, but were very involved in their faith upbringing. I wonder how that was. Anyway, moving on. 5, my grandfather was enabled by the church to be an iron fist patriarch. How so? How? How did the church enable him to rule that household as the patriarch with an iron fist? And what exactly does iron fist entail? Because it just ever listen to someone tell a story and they make these fantastical claims and they make these claims by saying, oh my god, it was the most horrible thing I ever experienced. They said the most horrible things, they did the most horrible things, it was disgusting, it was so upsetting, but that's all they give, and you're left with this feeling of, I don't know what the hell they just said. What happened? What are you trying to convey to me? But then there's some people who tell a story and they're like, oh my God, you wouldn't believe what he said to her. He said this, this, and this, and then he went and did that, and then this happened, and it was just, we all thought, oh my God, this is crazy, and then we didn't know what to do, so then we talked about it, and we did X, Y, and Z. Like that you can believe because there's examples, there's an accurate representation, or there's a detailed representation of what occurred. But it's this stuff here. He was enabled by the church to be an iron fist patriarch. What does that mean? I don't believe it. If you can't tell me what the fuck that means, I think you're lying. His leadership in the Knights of Columbus allowed him to hide in plain sight. How so? How did the Knights of Columbus help him to hide? And hide what? What was hide his existence? I don't understand. Other men and the priests all covered for each other. All covered for each other. How? You need to give specifics here. Otherwise, you're just a big fat liar. 6. The principal of my mom's high school was a pedo and on the list of accused by the diocese in MSP, St. Paul. I don't know what MSP means. Okay. Did he abuse your mom? Don't get me wrong. I'm not looking for the disgusting details. I really don't want to know the answer to that. To assume that he didn't, though, because if he had, then I'm pretty sure that she would have jumped at the chance to include that in here. And somehow it would have, the residual effects would have affected her life tremendously, I'm sure. But she doesn't include that. So I'm left to believe that there was no abuse of the mother, which thankfully so. So why are we including that? Moving on. 7, patriarchy within the church was also patriarchy within families. What the fuck does that mean? Patriarchy can mean an array of things, all kinds of different ways, things you can determine to be patriarchal. And for granted, sometimes it's subjective, but I think that there's a pretty blanket term that most of us can agree on. But still, you don't even include any examples of the blanketed term examples, let alone the more subjective ones. So again, you're just trying to paint this very vague picture to generate feelings as opposed to convince people. So that tells me you're lying. Moving on. Okay, so there's that. Now we are going to go to, we're going to do that one. We're going to do the more recent recovering Catholic ones. So we'll start here. New recovering Catholic one. All right, this is just recently. She just posted this yesterday or the day before. And this says, people ask me about my faith background and why I do what I do with my work obsession. Not work obsession. Stalking is not a job. I wanted to share a bit about my background yet again, because it's only been like, 6 months since I last did it. I'm sharing only my story. And I do not speak for all people of a faith. My story is my story. If you were raised in a church, or if you were raised in the church and didn't have a similar experience, great. But that does not diminish my experience. This is all about me and my experience. Get that straight. 1, I was raised Roman Catholic. 2, I went through every sacrament through confirmation. Well, technically you were married, right? So you received that sacrament as well, right? No? Okay. 3, my grandparents were extremely abusive and used religion as a weapon to hurt and manipulate. I'm sorry, were grandparents not supposed to do that? I don't mean to mock this or diminish her experience or whatever. But yeah, because I mean, anyone who's been raised in any kind of, I'm going to venture and say any faith here, the grandparents were usually more representative of the faith because they were more involved. So I think it's understandable that the grandparents are going to be more, I don't know, more the people to dull out tenets of the faith than the parents. So, and isn't all religion meant to like shame and manipulate in a sense? Okay, I digress. 4, corporal punishment was standard in my home. Spare the rod, spoil the child. Children should be seen and not heard. Wooden spoons were the weapon of choice, or just a hand on a bare bottom. Listen, okay, that is child abuse. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. It is child abuse, and depending on the variables, the frequency and everything of this type of corporal punishment, it can be very traumatic. I'm not at all doubting that, okay? I mean, I was never hit with a wooden spoon. I was never spanked, at least not that I can recall. At least not as a kid. Anyways, moving on. But I was slapped across my face twice by a parent. Now, looking back on things, I was being a little shit, no doubt. And I was also older. I was like preteen, basically. I wasn't like a 5-year-old or whatever. And it wasn't hard, but still, it was still child abuse. But I assure you, I am not in any way traumatized by this. I am quite fine. I have never laid a hand on my kids. But it's not because I was slapped that I chose not to do that. I just chose not to do that because I chose not to do that. And I don't fault or blame my parents who did this. Like, I still love them very much. I get it. You know, you deal with the tools that you have available and that you have knowledge of at that time. It doesn't mean that you can. You learn to have better tools, though, if your tools are detrimental. My point is we've heard this story from her before. And I don't get the impression that this was a frequent thing, that this maybe happened once or twice, maybe 5 times throughout her life. And I'm not at all diminishing that. I have no doubt it can leave a mark on a child, especially a young child. But at some point in time, like preferably before your mid-40s, almost 50, you kind of move past this anyways, right? No? Moving on. 5, purity culture was standard. What religion is not standard? They're always teaching you not to have sex before marriage. I was shamed for my body, developing breasts and sexualized as a child for being a girl. Yeah, that has nothing to do with religion. I'm sorry. That happens to every girl. Every single girl, as their body changes, that happens. That has nothing to do with any religion or faith. Sorry. My grandmother verbally and spiritually abused me. My mom was her flying monkey that delivered all of her orders. I was threatened with shunning and being disowned if I didn't follow the rules of the church. I don't know. Like, what rules of the church exactly? Don't lie. Don't steal. Don't kill people. You should never be threatened with disavowalment or being shunned. Because everyone should at least be able to depend on their family to always love them and be there for them. Sure. But I mean, if they're pressuring you to not like lie, steal, and cheat and shit like that, I think that that's just child rearing. No? Anyway. 7, I was told regularly that God is punishing you for anything bad that happened to me. Okay. 8, I grew up fearing God. Oh my God, what kid raised in a religion doesn't? Oh my God. See, my whole point is nothing of this is unique to her, okay? And she's acting like she's posting about this like she's the biggest fucking victim in the world, that she needs all the same support and sympathy and empathy as people with the most horrific stories of spiritual abuse. And that's very selfish and entitled of her, in my opinion. 9, my grandmother told me that I killed my grandfather because I left the Catholic Church. At his funeral, the priest told us my grandfather would remain in purgatory if we didn't go back to church. You're an idiot if you would believe the priest for saying that, okay? I'm sure the priest was an asshole, but you're an idiot if you bought it for a second. And your grandmother was probably very, very upset mourning the loss of her life partner. I think that someone should give him a little slack at that point in time. Sure, it's a shit thing to say, and you can address it with them later on. But you got to give a little bit of leeway there, no? Moving on. 10, after having my son, my mom regularly called me and asked for my grandmother when I planned to baptize my son. Okay. Was that traumatic, really? They was so traumatic for you that your mom would call you up saying, hey, yo, grandma wants to know when you plan on baptizing your kid. Did you have to spend 3 days in a bed crying or something after that? I mean, why is this even included? This is the most ridiculous thing. 11, my grandmother told me that if I didn't baptize my son, that he would not go to heaven. But that is the teaching of the church, okay, the faith. Sure, your grandmother's an asshole. Okay. But was that really traumatic? Because, I am of the belief that you were not believing in God, no? So what do you care that your son won't go to some place that doesn't exist according to you? Yeah, sure, be pissed off that your grandmother's trying to hurt you like that, but that's about it. That's about where the trauma should end, no? 12, when my grandparents died, I never received anything. No. So being cut off and disowned was an empty threat. This sounds like it was a very full threat, because if when they died, you didn't receive anything from them. It sounds like they kind of cut you off and disowned you and didn't leave you anything. No? So it sounds like it's a very fucking full loaded threat. Anyway, but you seem awfully hung up that you didn't receive anything. What did you think you were going to receive? The shit wouldn't even go to you, really. Maybe like a trinket or something, like a ring or a necklace or something, or like um, I don't know, a piece of furniture that you showed interest in through the years or something, you know? Of course, you have to spend time with the family member and in their home or around their items to really show interest. At least that's how it was with me and my family. I showed interest in some things, and my grandmother just naturally, not even thinking about, oh, I might get this someday. But so when it came time for her, when she did pass, I got them, you know? It's just, that's how it goes. They're not going to leave you anything. They don't know to leave you anything. And if they see or know of other people in the family who will actually covet, love, and appreciate the item, then that's where it's going to go. So maybe you not receiving anything wasn't being cut off or disowned. Maybe it was you not making yourself available. Just a theory. Anyways, 13. I found out 2 years ago that my devout Catholic grandfather, that was a leader in the Knights of Columbus, was a pedo that arred young girls. That would suck. I'm not sure what the Knights of Columbus have to do with that, but okay. 14. My confirmation priest molested a boy in the same class as me. Now, I recall that, from what I recall, that he wasn't in the same class as you. This is the story you told before, was it not? We'll get to that, though. And that is a horrible thing, if true. But what does that have to do with you? Are you mad that it wasn't you? Because it seems like you might be. Like, how is this a thing that affected your life? Especially since you probably didn't even find out about it 2 years later, you know? Anyway, I am not a Catholic anymore. I am also no contact with my family after they told me that my grandfather was a pedo. They never protected any of us kids from him or my grandmother. Instead, they were a constant abusive force in my life until their deaths. Well, did your grandfather molest you? No, he didn't. Even according to your own admission, he didn't. You seem to think that you have some sort of repressed memory. You feel like something happened, but you can't remember, which I call bullshit. So I'm going to say that your parents did protect you. If it didn't happen, your parents fucking protected you, no? Anyway. My story. I'm a recovering Catholic. Okay. So that was a recovering Catholic post. We're going to skip the comments for now. Okay, so oh wait, that was it. What was it? New recovering Catholic. Okay, so now we're going to go over these comments here. Sadly, I can relate to a lot of this, but in my case, I'm still a practicing Catholic. I always want to leave, but I have a fear. I have fear of leaving. That Catholic guilt they give you as a child sticks with you, and it's real. Yeah, that can be true. To which Katie says, you can leave and still be fine. I didn't burn up or end up wicked. I think the jury's out on that. Well, no, I think the jury came back with that, and I'm going to say that that's bullshit. You didn't burn up, sure. But the wicked part, I'm not sure that you're wicked because you left. I think you're just wicked. Moving on. I just don't know why I feel guilty if I leave. The guilt my mom puts on me is horrible. To which Katie says, I understand. I went through that guilt as well. My mom stopped going to church, but still sent me messages from my grandma. The guilt was horrible. But when my grandmother died, I didn't shed a single tear. The guilt was all for nothing. That's probably why you didn't get left shit when they died, because you were sitting there not shedding a fucking tear over the loss of your grandmother. They probably knew that that's what was going to happen. So why would they reward you for that? I'm just saying, that's kind of telling. That kind of tells the story here. All I can say is that I'm so sorry this happened to you. My mom has the guilt concept of the church down pat. Shame is a big manipulator in the church. I hope you recover and realize they were wrong, not you. The hardest part, Katie says, is still loving your parents, but realizing they aren't safe for you or your child. How the fuck are your parents not safe? Okay, are your parents still going to beat you with a wooden spoon by allegedly? Are your parents going to? Are you worried that they're going to do that to your son? So then don't let your son spend the night at their house. Okay, you don't have to not talk to your. That's crazy. What are you punishing them for exactly? I have a feeling though that your family is probably like, I think that they were probably very quite upset when you did this whole no contact thing. But I think as time's gone on, I think that they're kind of relieved. I think that they realize, shit, life could have been like this all along. Why didn't we do this instead of waiting for her to do it? My opinion. But I think I'm right. Do you blame your mom and dad? She could have married your father anyway. It's not like her parents could have actually stopped them from getting married. They were grown adults. This is true. However, I do think it was a different time there. And if religion is a big part in your upbringing in your community, then I think that they do kind of have a say. And she chose to allow your grandparents to play such a huge part in your upbringing. Your dad just stayed out of it, even though he obviously didn't agree with it. I'm not being confrontational. You opened yourself up to questions, and I'm genuinely curious. My dad is abusive in his own right outside of religion. He grew up Presbyterian and very religious conservative. He was very much spare the rod, spoil the child, even though he left the faith. My mom was abused by her dad and my dad. I blame them both. I'm no contact with both. How so, though? You don't give examples. You're defaming and dragging your parents without, I don't know. It doesn't seem right to me. It really doesn't. Okay, recovering Catholic comment for. Someone says, I am recovering from my Catholic upbringing. I found the 13 years of Catholic school very restrictive and the hypocrisy was out of control. That is so true. I had a great Catholic upbringing, I think. I went to what I would consider a progressive Catholic church, maybe, especially for the time, some time ago. But even still, they were quite hypocrites. After a near-death experience from a car accident, I left the faith and found comfort in Eastern religion. My mom has tried to get me to baptize my kids and is finally giving up. It's kind of a joke with us now. I do believe some Catholic people are cultish, and I'm glad to support my kids fully, unlike the shame they try to put on me. Katie says, my family and the church they were in was very cult-like. My grandparents had cult-like control on us, and the church helped facilitate it. How so? How? What is cult-like control? How did the church help this? How? Who? Who, what, when, where, why, and how? I mean, you're a reporter. No, are you not? We know you're not, but you like to claim you are. So one of the first things you learn as a reporter is who, what, when, where, why, and how. No? So why isn't you're reporting on your own story, your life, and you're expecting people to believe you, but you can't give one of those fucking answers? Not one. Maybe because it's not the story you're trying to tell. It's not even the story you're trying to get credit for. You just want people to feel for you, so they excuse you and the shit you do. I wonder what's coming. I wonder what you're fearing is going to come out soon for you to be doing this. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I think that might be part of it. But I think the biggest part of it, why it is Katie's doing this now and putting all this out there, is because she's quite jealous of Preacher Boy with his new documentary that came out. And she is seeing all of these documentaries called Shining Happy People. Something about 7M has been in the works. And now this one with Preacher Boy. And she's been left out of all of them. The like self-titled cult buster here on social media has not been consulted on any of these, let alone credited for anything. She's just been left out, and she's not liking that. So it's almost like she's trying to paint her own story so she can get her own documentary and star in it. But no one, people got to believe you. You got to be able to corroborate shit. Shit out of luck, I guess you are. Why did I just say that like Yoda? Oh my God. Someone says, the Catholic Church have been in this game for centuries. They're very good at getting people on board, but they could not continue their reign with the advent of social media and the documentaries that have come out in the recent past. Oh no, they can't bury things like they used to. You underestimate the Catholic Church. Katie says, it's hard to speak out because people say, oh, that's just your family. No, my grandparents and mom were enabled by priests who encouraged the abuse. How fucking so? And now your mom was enabled? I thought it was the men, the predators that were enabled. Like, was everyone who ever wronged you in your life enabled by the Catholic Church? Is that it? And you're just the victim of the Catholic Church? I mean, come on. You're not Jesus. But how so? Who, when, where, why, and how? People pleasing and saying no was such a hard habit to break for me. I remember being in therapy and learning that I could say no. I always felt like if I said no, that something bad would happen to me. The guilt was so profound. A lot of people took advantage of my inability to say no, but I say no all the time now, and it's glorious. I'm gonna say that that's not a religious thing. It's not. That's a kid thing, and sadly, that's also a female thing. Growing up, like, and I don't mean no in, like, the intimate times so much. I mean, in any time in life, someone asks you for a favor, someone asks you about whatever. Women, girls are taught to just be nice, be accommodating, don't make waves, don't make noise, don't make trouble. We're raised to be the good silence martyrs of the race, basically. And that's fucked up. That has nothing to do with faith, though. It is fucked up. And I do agree that it is it's quite liberating when you finally do learn to say the word no. It really is. I'm so sorry you experienced this, Katie. Just curious, if your son decides he wants to practice a religion when he gets older, would you support him? This isn't meant to shame. I'm genuinely curious of your view. My opinion on a speculative situation is irrelevant to this post. Your comment is gaslighting and taken away from the facts. You're right, Katie. It was taking away from your pity me story of your bullshit fucking reason for people to care about you and excuse you and feel bad for you. This person was trying to take away from that and actually wanted to talk about your kid for a second, to put your kid first, to see if you're going to still respect and love and put your kid first. But that's not what this is about. It's about you. Now, I'm going to sit here and say, I consider myself agnostic now, as opposed to Catholic. And I've said the same thing to all my kids growing up. If there's ever a faith, or if you just want to even explore faiths, I will do everything and anything I can to help facilitate that. Meaning, I will give you rides, I will get you literature, I will talk with you about it, I will support you no matter what. And if you decide that there is a faith that you feel called to and you want to practice, then again, you have all my love and support here. The only time you will not get my love and support when it comes to religion is if and when practicing any faith causes you to harm others or causes harm to you. Because if that's the case, then you're fucking doing it wrong. Okay? Religion ain't supposed to do that. And if your faith or religion is doing that, then there's something seriously wrong and I can't support that. That's all. So for her to not even consider, like she says, my opinion on a speculative situation. Sure, it's speculative today, but there will come a day in the future where it's not, because your child will inquire about religion. What are you going to do? Are you going to just paint it as this horrible, terrible thing that goes around just R-ing kids? Because faith can be very comforting in some pretty troubling times in life for a lot of people, regardless of, even if the person being comforted doesn't fully believe it. It's the community and knowing you're not alone. And that's something that pretty much every faith does offer. Just, you got to find one that in a parish or whatever, sect, whatever, that offers it to a healthy amount. Anyway, moving on. I'm practicing Catholic. I'm sorry you had these horrible experiences in your church and upbringing. No one should be treated that way. I'm sorry. You can practice a faith and ignore the atrocities the church has perpetuated on millions. What the fuck? You're the one. No, they're not ignoring shit. They acknowledged your experience. They acknowledged that it was wrong and that you shouldn't have had to go through your experience, even though your experience was a big fucking nothing burger. Okay, you're talking about everybody else's experience distantly related to you. That's what you're using for like your poor pity me here. Okay, but even still, this person is acknowledging this. It's you who's not acknowledging them. You are being closed-minded. You are being dismissive of their experience because you feel like you deserve the spotlight here. Because it's what was it? No one's going to steal your thunder. I think that was the comment you used that one time. Really fucking disgusting comment to use at that point in time, but I digress. Oh, back to the gaslighting comment, the speculative situation. Someone responded to that and says, actually, you're being dismissive and there isn't any gaslighting going on at all. Gaslighting means telling someone something isn't happening when it really is. Thank you for finally explaining to Katie Joy what gaslighting is. She won't remember it because she never gets it right. She's been told this before, but every time I see someone make the effort, I feel like there's a little bit of hope restored here. Because gaslighting is pretty much anything and everything that causes her any kind of discomfort. That's gaslighting. My cat's being very loud. Okay. All right, so now we have one here, viewer fight back. I thought it was funny. Oops, wrong one. I said, okay, there we go. As a practicing Catholic, I do not put my head in the sand. You tend to generalize a lot. If you do not believe in organized religion, I get it. The Catholic Church has had horrible issues with abuse in SA. But my faith and personal relationship with Christ is based on my experiences. I have also seen priests and nuns who risk their own safety to go into communities to assist and minister. There are priests and nuns who are amazing. There are ones who are trash. You'll find that in any group of people, in any arena in life. There will be humans that are good and trustworthy and are there for the right reasons. And then there will be the shitheads. Because that's human nature. Both are human nature. You can't avoid human nature wherever you find humans. Moving on. Now we're going to go to, okay, we're going to do these here. There's a couple of posts you have to put up about Catholic hate. They're little ones. We're just going to go over quick. Stupid, mind you, but whatever. All together now. If you're happy and you know it, that's a sin. What? Accurate for how I grew up. What? Did you have a birthday party ever? Then I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that your family and growing up involved you want their want for you to be happy. I think so. Ain't no guilt like the Catholic guilt, because the Catholic guilt don't stop. Oh my God, so stupid. Anyway, moving on. Now we're going to go over here to the bishop arrest. Now she goes into the story. Now she already mentioned it once about the kid in her class or whatever. Well, here's the story behind that. So the story behind that is in June 2010, I don't know how to read that, Neinstedt wrote to Bishop Robert Brome, then of San Diego, at Greiman's request, informing him that Greiman was a priest in good standing. Neinstedt acknowledged the allegation and said the civil authorities declined to prosecute, that an internal investigation found no substantiating evidence, and that the case was referred to the review board, who, quote, saw no reason to restrict Greiman's ministry. Heiselberger told NPR that the case was not referred to the review board. The Archdiocese now claims that, quote, allegations against Father Gerald Grayman, now retired, were reported to the New Brighton Police Department and determined to be without merit, end quote. It's true that the Archdiocese notified authorities, but it's not quite right to say the allegations were determined to be meritless. This is, why is it? It should be like that. Claimant. Yeah, it's not gonna work. All right. I'm gonna have to read it like this. After the police were initially notified in 2006, they never contacted the claimant because, according to the police report, they had, quote, no way to contact him. In 2013, the man brought his allegations to the police in person and composed a detailed statement of his claims. But about 10 days later, the New Brighton police referred the case to the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office, quote, due to an internal conflict with this agency, end quote. That conflict was not specified in the report. Ramsey County declined to prosecute. It's not clear why. The criminal statute of limitations is 9 years after the offense or 3 years after the offense is reported to law enforcement authorities, whichever is later. Since the alleged crime was first reported to the police in 2006, prosecutors may have thought their hands were tied. If so, that doesn't mean the allegations were without merit. And apparently, Ramsey County has had second thoughts because it has reopened the case. But at this point, even though NPR has turned up documents the police have not seen, local civil authorities remain reluctant to seek search warrants or to subpoena the Archdiocese files. I asked Howie Padilla, a spokesperson for the St. Paul Police, whether NPR's reporting changed the police chief's view that a search warrant was unnecessary. He referred me to a January interview in which the chief explained his position. His quote, his answer to this remains the same, end quote, Padilla said. The Ramsey County Attorney's Office did not reply to my request for comments. So that's what I found written about this. Now here's what Katie has to say about this. Father Gerald Grayman. The priest who led my confirmation class in 1994 made us confess to him in a dark basement room of the mansion owned by the diocese during our weekend retreat. I don't remember having to go to confession before confirmation. I remember, confession being a thing for, it's the sacrament of reconciliation. And I remember it being a thing for your communion. But I don't remember it being a thing, though, before confirmation. Now, it could be just that I don't recall. I don't remember much of anything, really. I don't know why. But is that normal? I don't know. I don't know. Kitty, no, Kitty, no. No, 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 no. No, go away. Sorry, Kitty. You're going to have to deal with it, though. All right. So here we have ordained 1979, accused, Archdiocese of St. Paul in Minneapolis, Minnesota. In 2006, a man told the Archdiocese that he was abused at age 12 by Grayman in the early 1990s. So let's just say 92. He was 12 in 92. So this would be 14 years later. So 12 and, I can't do math. 24 something. 26, 20 something. Grayman was assigned. I really can't do math. I can if I had paper, but in my head, I can't. Grayman was assigned at the time of his alleged abuse to St. John the Baptist in New Brighton. The man refused to release his medical records, and the Archdiocese found the claim was incredible. Reported to police, but no investigation. Well, they found it to be uncredible, the Archdiocese, but they still reported it to police. I don't know. I feel like that's progress. But on the church's end, anyways. The man reported to police himself in 2013. So 7 years. 7 years later, the man then reported to police. I'm curious though, because it said 9 years since the offense is a statute of limitations, or 3 years since it was first reported, whichever comes later. So, but it was reported in 2006, just not to police, although it was reported to police, but not by the victim. So would that count as a report? So would it statute of limitations ended in 2009? I don't know, but I'm curious. Freeman retired in 1999. Archdiocese sent letter of good standing to San Diego and mentioned allegations. Living in Phoenix, Arizona, not on list released by Archdiocese. Sources, okay. I grew up attending St. John the Baptist Church in New Brighton, Minnesota. I was confirmed in 1994. Across the world, the church has paid out billions to victims of SA by priests, nuns, and clergy. In the United States alone, Bishop Accountability estimates that over $4 billion has been paid by the church to victims of SA. According to a report done in Minnesota, the church I attended had 3 head priests in a row accused of SA by children. All of these priests were in charge while I was attending catechism classes, Mass, and the sacrament of confirmation. From Bishop Accountability, quote, at St. John the Baptist in New Brighton, for example, the Reverend Thomas Stitz, who was later accused of abusing dozens of boys, served as pastor from 1979 to 1984. He was replaced by Reverend Gerald Greenman, a priest now under criminal investigation for alleged child SA, who served as pastor from 1985 to 1996. 6 years after Greenman left, the Reverend Michael Keating arrived and served as the assistant pastor from 2002 to 2005. In spring 1994, Father Jerry attended my confirmation classes retreat at the Catholic Charities Mansion in South Minneapolis. During this retreat, we were forced to watch a sex education video. The woman in the video told us that if we had premarital sex, we would contract herpes or AIDS and we'd end up pregnant. Well, those are all very possible, no? There was no sex education. It was abstinence or else. I have no doubt about that. It's the Catholic Church. What did you expect? Did you expect them to teach you how to put on condoms at the Catholic Church retreat? Fuck no. It's not right. I agree. But it's kind of par for the course. Anyway. We were forced to confess our sins to Father Jerry in a dark room of the basement. He probed me. Why would you use that fucking word talking about this? See, this is what I mean. She wishes she were a victim here. She wants to be able to tell the story of abuse, these horrific acts committed against her. But they didn't happen. And she seems she feels like she's missing out, it seems. What the fuck would why would she feel like she's missing out? Like, oh my God, I feel like that opens up a bag of worms. All right. He probed me to disclose all of my sexual thoughts or actions. I was 15. A grown man demanding I confess sexual experiences to him as part of confirmation. How many sexual experiences did you have at 15? I don't want to know. Actually, I don't know what to talk. Every single student had to do this. This man was accused of abusing a boy in my class. They moved him to Arizona. Okay. For these Catholics, they had a great experience. I cannot stomach how anyone could turn a blind eye to the massive SA the church has covered up for decades. Who do you think has been calling attention to it, huh? It's been actual Catholics who have had great experiences. It's not just the victims, but it's the people who just know that it happened, even though it didn't happen to them. It's a collaborative effort on everyone's part. No one's turning a blind eye. People, you can take what you want from a religion. You can take the good and leave the bad, or banish the bad, call attention to the bad and punish the bad, sure. But you can still take the good. It doesn't diminish the victims of the bad. It's not about you. It's not all about you. It's definitely not about you if you weren't a fucking victim. Oh my God, get over yourself. Oh my God, I can't. I swear to God. Oh, okay, no. Priests have been arrested. Many have gone to prison. But still, some Catholics stick their heads in the sand and say, my experience was good, as though that erases the pain and suffering of the millions of children that were abused. No one says that. Nobody fucking says that. People will sit there and say, thankfully, that wasn't my experience. But by saying it like that, even they acknowledge that it was others' experience. They're just sharing their own experience, too. But that takes away from you, doesn't it? You don't like that. We get it. All right. Here are some comments rather, underneath the post. I grew up Catholic. I remember attending a youth leadership retreat at that mansion and a retreat at the CYC Center in St. Paul, where the Excel Center is now located. I loved attending both. I was with friends. It was fun, etc. However, I am a grown-up now and have left the Catholic Church, not from my own experiences, but from waking up and realizing that the atrocities that I cannot support. Katie says, I had fun at the retreat, but I will not ignore the disturbing time I was forced to sit in the basement and forced to confess my experiences or thoughts to a grown man who sat way too close to me. I could feel his legs touching mine. I'll never ever forget how uncomfortable I was. I was crying because I didn't know what to share, and I didn't want to disappoint him. I can believe that that's possible. I can believe that. I feel like this might be something that could have been dealt with a lot. I don't see her being that upset over this for this long, but I can see that actually happening. The money the Catholic Church pays out had to still be fought for by victims, and the only ones getting rich are the lawyers. The victims receive money. No one is getting rich off this. Oh no, I think the lawyers are. Yeah, absolutely. That's why people become lawyers, is to make money. But yeah, no, I don't think the victims are getting rich off of it. No. Oh, look, God knows the Catholic Church has it spare. No? Okay. Has anyone seen or used this? BishopAccountability.org accused. Katie says, that's where I found my priest. The diocese, of course, says the abuse was unsubstantiated, even though the boy pressed charges. Pretty sure he wasn't a boy when he did that. We already determined that when I did my shitty math, okay? Pretty sure my math was at least well enough to establish that he wasn't a boy when he pressed charges. And yeah. I mean, it seems like she's going awfully far out of her way to paint this picture worse than it has to be. And it doesn't need to be painted any worse. It's bad enough if true. All right. Now we're going to go into some of Katie's stories about her parents and growing up, because some things seem to change. But we've heard a lot of things here already, but we're going to go over this now. Here she adds a new little tidbit. My dad was also a very absent father. He traveled a lot for work and was not around a lot during my school years. When he was home, I did my best to avoid him. My dad stayed out of religion, but he didn't stop the religious abuse in my mom. My parents were equally abusive in different ways, but your dad wasn't home. Your dad was rarely around, you said. He wasn't there around your school years. And when he was, you did all you could to avoid it. I'm not to say that, you were unable to avoid him and that maybe some shit didn't happen. I'm sure that it did. And it had to been very tough too, to have that to be your main interactions with your father. I mean, my father too worked out of town for my formidable years, I think, for the most part, from the time I was 5 till I was about 16. Of course, he came home. At first he came home every weekend, then a little less. He worked construction, so he went to where the work was, and it was usually in other states and whatnot. But he came home for good when I was 16, and and it took some getting used to, because he wasn't around much, I think, from the time I was like 10 to 16. So I wasn't this little girl anymore. And yeah, so I get that, but I mean, that had to been tough. I can appreciate that. I really can. I don't know. I can appreciate that now as a parent, though, too, from the parent side. Like, I can appreciate how difficult it had been for my dad to go through the adjustment of me no longer being that little girl. And now all of a sudden I'm a young woman, and he has to adjust his interactions with me and his child rearing of me or whatever, setting rules and stuff like that. Do we punish her? How so? Like, what do we do? Is she grounded? What? What can she do? What are the rules here for her? I imagine there had to be an adjustment. And I had imagined there had to have been adjustment for her father too. And I imagined that she did all she could to make that adjustment difficult, just like I did. So, yeah. All right, and here we have. When my mom left my dad, the priest used to call her weekly, saying divorce is a sin, and her children would be bastards in the eyes of the church. No, they're not. If they were married, parents were married when the kids were born, then they're not fucking bastards. Sorry, divorce doesn't turn them into bastards. I don't think. My mom was restful until she had it. And she said, he is beating me. Why don't you live with him? He never called her back after that. That reminds me of a time, one of my earliest memories, I think, of church. My mom got in a fight with the priest outside after Mass over birth control because the church didn't allow it. And my mom thought that was ridiculous. I just remember like my mom shaming the priest. It was funny. I think that's why when I went to Catholic school, like I didn't have much fear of priests. If I had a question, I asked them, to the point that by the time I was in 5th grade, the priest for our school, who's the priest all throughout my time there, Father O'Brien, he would see me walking down the hall and he would just look up at me and just turn around and walk the other way. Yeah. Anyway, Katie writes, my parents and grandparents didn't believe in divorce. The women are subservient and submissive. I was too opinionated. I was too strong. I refused to live my life that way. I will not put up with verbal and emotional abuse by anyone. How are they subservient and submissive? I'm curious. I witnessed my grandfather scream and yell at my grandmother. I watched him raise his hands and threaten to smack her. The same man that argued young girls. I was not protected him. What? He was violent and abusive. In turn, my grandmother was a witch and abusive to those she could control in retaliation to the abuse she received from him. It just trickled on down. It's interesting to hear her say that, because now just remember that whenever she talks about the women who are victims of these cults or whatever, these religious cults, these sects or whatever, she doesn't really view them as victims. She just views them as her initial door in to talking about the cults. She's going to very soon eventually turn on them as well and accuse them of being just as bad as the men. And the kids will be the only ones who are the true victims until they kind of age out of her sympathetic age range, in which case she will then blame them for the shit that happened to them. You think I'm wrong? Oh, no. See, her social media presence in covering these cults rather, is evidence of this pattern time and time again. This is why we all get so frustrated, because we know that she's not here to do any good. She's here to feed her own fucking narcissism. That's why she's here. In which case, I don't really care. You feed away, really. But when you start to get to be bigger and bigger and grow, and you start doing more and more harm, and then you start becoming emboldened by this harm, well, then, yeah, I think that deserves to be called out and called attention to. What anyone else does with the information is up to them. I have no control over that, nor do I want to have any control over that. But I think people should at least be made aware so they can make informed decisions. No? I think so. Okay, now, we've heard all of this now. We've heard this horrible shit she's had to say about her family, no? Well, it might surprise you to know that Katie Joy hasn't always felt this way about her family. She's actually been quite fond of her family, and right up until recently too, almost. We're gonna revisit those. So here we go. Old parent recall. Sorry, my lipstick is bothering me here. Okay. Cat, what are you doing? My cat wants to come say hi again. You want to get in your bed? Here. Get in your bed. That's why I put it there. Go on. Get in your bed. There. There you go. Oops, sorry. I didn't mean to hit the microphone. Lay down, kitty. Lay down. Okay. All right. This is from November 28th, 2021. Katie writes, oh, this is when she was going through and sharing, doing videos and stuff of her ancestors and whatnot. And when they allegedly discovered that Todd was not, in fact, Native American, but actually part African American. So here we go. Thanks for coming along on my journey this weekend. I'm sure for some of you it was boring, but for me it was cathartic. My family has always been so complex. I grew up not knowing my dad's side because his parents died when I was an infant. I grew up with the best parents on earth. Honestly, if you want to know why I'm driven to succeed, thank my dad. Doing crazy. She's up in the chair, isn't she? Oh my, she's gonna scratch the chair. I mean, ow! No, stop it! You're gonna ruin my chair. No, I don't want you to ruin my chair. Okay, Kitty? Stop it! Stop it! Go elsewhere. It's like having a toddler. All right. Want to know why I'm driven to succeed? Thank my dad. My dad never stopped encouraging me to reach any goals I could achieve. He was as a national merit scholar. Salutatorian. I can't pronounce that word. I know valedictorian, salutatorian of his high school, a man with a master's in public health, and someone that never let anyone bully his family. Really? Not even like religious grandparents or priests or whatever? Excuse me. My mom was an educator, a hands-on mom that was so fiercely protective of me. My mom was the most hands-on mom that always had us doing activities, crafts, and made sure our lives were filled to the brim. I was bullied a lot. I had opinions, drive, ambition, goals, and I was a child with extreme anxiety and untreated ADHD. Mhm. People didn't always get me, but my parents never let that stop me. They believed in me. Absolutely no one in my life has been a bigger cheerleader and constant support than my parents. Getting to know their history helped me understand why they are so freaking awesome. My dad got his amazing heart and compassion from his mother and grandmother. My mom got her wonderful empathy and heart to serve from her parents. Her dad pushed her to get a college education. This is awkward. My dad worked hard. He served on the school board until I graduated so that he could hand me my diploma. Was the school board out of town? I'm confused. I don't know. My parents are active in the community, constantly volunteer, and have instilled a core value in me to always give back and never to take anything for granted. Something you're shitting on as you sit in your house and your life wastes away day by day. I say that because I did that for a couple of years, like just before COVID and a little bit into COVID. And it was right during COVID, the shutdown, when I started losing my mind. And I thought, what am I doing? I'm wasting my fucking life away. What the fuck am I doing? So I started getting out. I got a job. I've been working nonstop ever since, and I love it. I have a social life again. I have friends again. I don't know why. I get why I took a break from it. And I think I needed to, because there's some things within me that I needed to work on. And I did. And I'm very happy for that. But I couldn't then stay there a day longer than I did. So, yeah. I know that they are a product of their parents and grandparents. A drive to serve, help, advocate, and speak out for injustice is in my blood. Yeah. My family history is filled with pastors, volunteers, and people that use their time here to make a difference. I will never care about the amount of money in my bank account, so long as I can afford 2 Bentleys. The car I drive, that's why I had a brand new BMW, or home I own, McMansion, what? What matters to me is helping others. Yeah. And what, calling the cops on your neighbors? Oh, no, it's right. They call them on you. That's right. My bad. I thank my parents and ancestors for that drive. My grandpa worked at the Skippy Peanut Butter Factory. Because of this, only Skippy is allowed at our house. He was active in the Knights of Columbus. He was a World War II vet and was a medic in Egypt, where he transported casualties and injured soldiers. Get off the chair. My grandma was a homemaker and town busybody. She was the kind of neighbor that left plates of food for her next door neighbor because she was afraid without a wife he'd never get fed. He told me the story. She was curt and direct with her tongue, but loved her family. They were strict Roman Catholics, staunch Democrats. They loved to drink brandy Manhattans. I think everyone from that time period did. Fucking Manhattans. She made homemade cookies every year for Christmas and loved to pray the rosary. She taught me how to make amazing mashed potatoes. I wish I got on my grandmother's chicken and dumplings recipe. I never did. I purchased the home they built. Before my grandpa died, he said, "Take care of my house." He said he was proud of me. How proud is he of you now? I held my grandma's hand until she passed away. I'm not sure I believe that. Oh, all right. Did I already read this one? Yeah, I have that one twice. Oops, my bad. This is another post from November 26, 2021. These two cuties are my mom's parents. Grandma Mary was born in South Dakota. Grandpa John was born in North Dakota. My Grandpa John's parents, Ludwig and Marcelina, were born in Odessa, Russia. They were German descent, spoke German. My Grandma Mary was third-generation immigrant. My grandfather and grandma on her dad's side immigrated from Russia. They are what is considered Volga Germans, Germans who settled outside of Germany in Russia-occupied areas. Her mom's parents immigrated from Austria-Hungary, were also German. They were also German. Her parents were 100% German, same with my grandfather. My grandparents both spoke German and lived in German farming communities in North Dakota and South Dakota. They spoke English with us and their kids, but they both had German accents despite being born here. What the fuck is that? Why? What does that mean? So my mom is 100% of German descent, just with ancestors from different parts of Germany. My dad's background is all over the place. Somehow I look like the tiny fraction of Danish heritage in me who immigrated from Denmark, my great-grandpa and his family. Long story short, because my mom is 100% German and my dad is 50% German, I'm 75% German. Is that really how it works, though? I mean, it could be. I don't know. The rest is Danish and English. What do you mean hoeing for? What's the matter? How I end up looking like the minority of my lineage is beyond me. Okay, but I don't know why that's funny. This one I highlight. I purchased the home they built. Before my grandpa died, he said, "Take care of my house." You bought the home of your grandfathers, the man who you are just convinced something happened. You said that you hated them after having to stay with them. The man who married one of your biggest abusers, and the man who you attribute to the creating the desire in your abuser to abuse you. You went out and bought his house to make him proud, and you took care of his house. I call bullshit. So that's that. I want to thank. What are you doing? I want to thank the subreddit Discord for many of these screenshots. That's where I got them from. A lot of them are still up, at least as of last checking, they're still up on her profile page. But the older ones, I have no doubt I could have found. Maybe even I have some of them, but it saves so much time when they, I don't know, they take the time to post it for people to see. And I'm very thankful to this subreddit Discord and to those in the subreddit. there's thousands of people in there now. I'm not sure how many are in the Discord, but there's over like 15,000 in the subreddit. And most of the people there are there for all the same reasons. They just want to call attention to some of the fucked up shit she does and says, and she does and says all in the name of advocacy or reporting or journalistic investigating or something like that, when it's not. This is all done to feed her inner narcissism, in my opinion. I'm not a professional. I can't diagnose, though I highly suspect, in my opinion. But it just seems like so many things she inserts herself in, okay? And like, whether it's this whole shit with religion, or whether it's, oh, and I could have been Gabby Petito, or whether it's, oh my God, Amber Portwood threatened me, so I have to call her parole officer, whatever, DA, whatever the fuck was she reported it to. Or Matt Bear sent indecent pics to some of my subs or something, or he was my friend first, or I mean, or Preacher Boy. When Preacher Boy learned a little bit more about Katie and decided, I don't think I want to team up with her because of her reputation and her tactics, to which she then responded to him by accusing him of victimizing her because she's a woman, of dismissing her. And then she went further to accuse him of R-ing his sisters he does not have. And just like with Steve McRae, when she accused him of harassing her, she isn't a victim. And this is a tragedy. It's a travesty, really, for Katie, because she so badly wants to be every victim. She wants to be the ultimate victim. But sadly, she has lived a life that has left her victimless. I mean, she has to resort to fishing for sympathy off of crimes allegedly committed to other people she does not even know. I mean, I don't want her to ever, achieve her dream of becoming the ultimate victim. Of course I don't. That'd make me crazy. I just hope that she eventually comes to the realization that she herself doesn't really want to be a victim, and she stops trying to be every victim in every situation, because she can't be happy like this. So hopefully she finds happiness and she stops trying to hijack everyone's victim story and make it her own. Yeah. So, okay, there's that. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.